So you're angry your partner left you. I mean, WTF, right? After everything you've given her, after everything you've done, she just ups and leaves like that. And now you are trying to basically make her feel bad for leaving, make her regret leaving, make her jealous for leaving, and you want to get that ultimate payback. Well, how do you do that? So in this video, I want to show you the key things that I teach my clients on how they're able to basically make their partners run back to them. And if you want to see more content that cuts through a lot of the BS and really bad advice about relationships and marriages, and you want to get the exact thing you need to either reconcile or to create the relationship of your dreams, feel free to subscribe to this channel and also click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. So to understand how to make your partner run back to you, we need to first understand what we call the hierarchy of value. And there's a few models we can use to look at this, but let's just make it simple and use a model I think a lot of us know, which is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically in this hierarchy of needs, you have the lower level needs here on the bottom, like your physiological needs, like your survival needs basically. But then in the higher pillars, you have more of the self-actualized and more of the emotional and self-fulfillment needs. Now, if you look at what is actually important for women, what is actually important are really the pillars from safety and up. And when we talk about safety, it's not even just physical safety or financial safety, it's more so of emotional safety, psychological safety, and going up. And a lot of you here may be saying to me, for example, but Jeff, if you look at the world, women are really attracted to men who are wealthy, who are powerful, who basically have these lower level needs, an abundance of this survival and material needs. Well, I made this in another video before, but women are not in love with those material stuff that men have, like the wealth, the power, the material possessions that this man has. But women are really attracted to what those things symbolize. So their assumption that women make is that if a man has enough of either masculinity, power, intelligence, strength, whatever it is, to get an abundance of these lower pillars, the assumption is they can also have an abundance of those skills, of those traits, of those personality traits to get them the higher pillars as well. But of course, we know that that's not always true. So you look at, for example, a lot of men who are wealthy, who are powerful, but they're wealthy and powerful without creating safety and the higher pillars of this hierarchy of needs. They quickly become very unattractive very, very fast. So again, this is another evidence to show that it's not just the material stuff that they're attracted to, but it's really they're attracted to men who can provide the higher pillars, not the lower pillars. And again, guys, I already made a video on this, so if you want to watch the video, I'll leave the link for you above my head or also down below this video as well. Now, the reason why I use this hierarchy of needs as a model is because if you want to make your partner jealous and basically run back to you, you must actually become high value in the correct definition of that word. So if you look at this hierarchy of needs, for example, so think about your life first, for example. In your life, what makes something high value? Is it high value? Is something high value when you can find an abundance of it? You can find it everywhere. It's not a rare commodity, it's a very common commodity. Of course not, that's not valuable. What's valuable is something that's rare, something you can't find everywhere, something you can't even buy with money sometimes. That's valuable. Now I want you to look around and see how many men do you think can serve these lower pillars here? How many men do you think are wealthy? How many men do you think can provide shelter, can provide financial security, can provide physical security? Look around, go to a mall and literally look around and see, okay, which men can satisfy that? You'll find that a lot of men, millions, if not tens of millions of men, or hundreds of millions of men can serve that purpose. You'll find that a lot of men can serve these lower needs. Now then ask yourself, go to the same mall and ask yourself, how many men can actually serve the higher needs, the higher pillars? Like giving self-actualization, for example, esteem needs, safety needs, etc. In addition to the lower level needs. You'll find that that's actually a much rarer breed of men. So with that comparison, it should be quite obvious what the definition of high value should be and what the definition of high value actually is. High value men are not men who just have an abundance of money and wealth and material goods and power and who look ripped and all these things that basically serve only the lower level needs. High value is defined now, especially by how well a man can create this higher level human needs that people crave and want so much. Now, another way to see this too, and why these higher level needs are really what defines high value, is when we look at a principle that I call basically the inflation of value. And if you look at, let's say, if you turn back time 70 years ago, for example, when women cannot vote, women cannot really get jobs. Women don't have as many rights as men, for example. If you were able to create and provide shelter, provide the lower level needs here, financial security, physical security, especially if you go back to like the hunting and gathering days, for example. If you can provide this lower level pillars, that was both necessary, but also that was also sufficient, because those are things that women cannot get themselves. But in the modern age, women don't need those things anymore. They can get their own jobs. They can, like my partner, for example, she's wealthy. She needs a mechanic. She can hire a mechanic. She doesn't need me to fix her car for her. She doesn't need me to provide shelter for her. She doesn't need me to provide financial security, even physical security, because we have our own security in our house, for example. We don't need all that stuff anymore. So now in the modern age, the same value they're providing is still necessary, but it's no longer sufficient to fulfill the higher level needs that she's looking for right now. She's looking for something higher level, like esteem needs, safety needs, self-actualization needs, emotional needs, etc. So if I look at society today and having seen a lot of people trying to reconcile and failing and some succeeding, I think there are two areas where men get wrong a lot. Number one is that they're over-investing in areas that they don't actually need to over-invest in. They're basically over-investing in the wrong areas. And so I want you to imagine here for a bit. You are a captain of a ship, and this ship has like 200 components to the ship. And right now, of the 200 components, you have 5 weak components that is basically going to make this ship sink. It's like a Titanic, right? It just takes a small iceberg to destroy a whole ship. So you have these 5 things that are flawed, and you have the 195 things that are great. And instead of focusing on the 5 things that are broken, you invest all the time, all the energy, all your manpower into strengthening the parts that don't need to be strengthened. What will happen to your ship? Your ship will still sink. And this sounds really funny if you put it like that, but that's what a lot of men do, So your partner's leaving right now because she's not getting those higher pillars. And so what does a lot of men do? If you watch a lot of videos, they say, oh, go to the gym, go learn to make money, go do that, go do that. Basically, all the things that you're told to do are to build the lower pillars again, but you're not building the higher pillars. So you can build the lower pillars all you want. You're not going to make anyone jealous of you because you're not actually serving and investing your time and effort and energy into the things that actually matter. The higher pillars. And the second mistake is more of a mindset mistake. And it's just not adapting your mindset to the inflation that is actually happening. And you hear a lot of men saying stuff like, for example, geez, women these days, they want so much. They want you to be everything. They expect so much out of you, etc. What more do they want? This is almost like, if you talk to like an old man, for example, and he's always saying and complaining basically, well, back then with 100,000, I can buy a really nice home. Well, grandpa, we don't live in 1950s anymore. There's actually such a thing called inflation. And so just like with finances, if you are right now busy complaining and whining about the results of inflation, about the reality that the value has inflated, and that the value that you thought you were creating is no longer sufficient while it was sufficient before, the more time you spend whining and complaining means that you have less time actually doing the work, doing the things you need to do, investing your time and energy in the right places to actually get ahead of inflation. But the people who are not complaining, not whining, and they're busy actually doing work, learning, growing to get ahead and overtake inflation, basically, those people become wealthy, not only in the financial sense of things, but also in the spiritual, in the relationship, in the emotional side of things. And they basically start to own the world. So of these two people, the people who are whining, complaining, but they're getting left behind, or the people who are not whining and complaining, but they're just overtaking and owning the world, which one do you want to be? As I say, right, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And the reality, guys, is that between back then and now, the definition of what being a high value man is have evolved. They have changed. That definition has inflated. And you're either on the wrong side of the inflation curve or on the right side of it. Depends on what you do with your time, energy, and how you invest your time and energy. And right now, you can complain all you want. You can whine all you want. You can blame the messenger me for saying this to you. You can blame women all you want, but it's not going to change their reality. And it's also not going to change the fact that you're going to have to face the consequences of whatever reality you live in right now. And again, if I look at the world today and how a lot of men operate, there are really 4 big major reasons why a lot of men aren't actually high value. And the people who think they're high value are not as actually high value as they think. Number one, again, is that you have the wrong understanding of what high value actually means. And this leads to 3 problems. Number 1 is that you either, again, focus on the low-level shit, basically the wrong stuff that makes you high value. So you overinvest in the wrong areas. And I see some men, for example, when they're able to create, let's say, a decent amount of wealth, a decent amount of power, success to basically fulfill these first 2 pillars, they kind of just stop there and they don't try to build the higher pillars anymore. Or when their partner's leaving them, for example, they overinvest and double down in these lower pillars, not in the higher pillars. So basically, again, all these 3 mistakes, you're just, because you fail to understand the value of the higher pillars, you tend to overinvest in their lower pillars, and you have no motivation, no incentive, no drive, no basically masculine energy directed towards building these higher pillars, which is a shame. And the worst kinds of men are the ones who, when they're pointed that, hey, you've been spending all your time in these lower pillars, not in these higher pillars, and they're told now that their lower pillars are no longer sufficient, they're no longer good enough, they get all pissy, they throw a tantrum, they write hateful comments and nasty stuff, and they basically say, you don't know what you're talking about. They start to blame women and blame the world and blame reality, etc. And contrast this to my clients like Stipe, for example, Joao, Nadif, who are clients who first bought into that whole high value man rhetoric and brought into the wrong definitions of what high value man means, but now they finally understand what high value actually means. And once they actually become high value in the objective sense of that word, they find that people are now flocking and running back to their lives. Because again, being high value in the higher pillars is a very, very rare commodity that you can find in this world. And when you can become that, people are going to flock to you like moths to flames. And the second reason why most men cannot be high value is a lot of men are too tethered. And when I say tethered here, too tethered to whatever you do is to have something, but you cannot just do because you are. So here's what happened with me and a lot of my clients, for example. Let's say that, you're finally realizing the value of learning the higher pillars, and now you're starting to talk in a deeper emotional way. You're starting to consider more of your emotions and understanding more of your emotions and talking in that more emotional way. Well, what happens then? For me, my partner basically told me, Jeff, stop doing that. You sound weird. You sound like a therapist. You sound not yourself. You sound kind of fake. You sound kind of pansy, whatever it is. And a lot of my clients are getting the same kinds of resistance as well as you try to explore these higher pillars. And so what happens is when you try to explore these higher pillars, because it's such a different change to who you were before, it makes people suspicious. It makes people doubtful. It makes people kind of wary of, okay, what's happening here? And so that wariness, that suspicion becomes external doubt. And when you are too tethered, what happens is that the external doubt quickly becomes internal doubt. Because again, I'm doing because I want to have. When I get that doubt, it feels like the having is going away from me. And so once I feel like the having is going away from me, I will stop doing. I will slow down the doing. And so the external doubt becomes internal doubt, and you stop doing the things you need to do to actually break through people's suspicions and confirmation biases, etc. And this is why, again, when you look at the patterns of most men, most men can change a little bit, but they cannot really make big paradigm shifts. They cannot really make massive changes that redefines who they are. That changes who they are at the identity level. Because again, as soon as they try to change, external doubt becomes internal doubt, and that pulls them back. They try to change a little bit, pulls them back. And this repeats for their whole life. And most people cannot break through and change in a massive way. And this is why, again, untethering and identity shifting is such a massive, one of the most crucial skills that my clients learn, because once you master untethering and identity shifting, that is when you can have the freedom to essentially become whoever the heck you want to become. You can grow as much as you want. You can change your paradigms, your identity, and make basically identity shifts as much as you want. Like I say, right? True power and freedom is not about being who you are, but it's about becoming whoever you need to become to accomplish whatever you need to accomplish. And so while most men, they live in this cycle where they try to change, as soon as they try, they get pulled back again. What a lot of my clients and what I have tried to learn to do is to basically change first, let other people doubt you, and let other people catch up to you eventually. And the third big reason why a lot of men cannot be high value, they cannot achieve this high value status, is because they focus too much on the quick and easy stuff, the quick and tangible skills. So again, if you look at the higher pillars here, the higher you go in this hierarchy of needs, the less tangible it becomes, the longer it takes to actually allow these changes to be seen. And the lower you go, the more tangible it becomes and the quicker it is to see these changes. For example, if you buy a new car, if you get some wealth, if you start to look fit, those are things that are lower level. And if you look at someone being fit, for example, you can instantly tell, okay, you have been doing some work. Awesome. But if you were to say, invest 6 months into identity shifting, for example, even after 6 months of identity shifting, people might not understand what your new identity is because they can't see it. Now, a lot of people, of course, want to gravitate towards these changes that are quick and easy and tangible that other people can see. And when you make them, people can look at you and go, wow, I can see the changes. But people are not incentivized to work on these higher pillars that are less tangible. But we have to remember, though, while these lower pillars are more tangible, they're quicker to see, they're also less valuable because you can find a lot of people doing it and focusing on it. These higher pillars, while they're less tangible and slower for people to recognize and see, they're actually a lot more valuable because, again, fewer people are focusing on this. It's why clients like Elisa, for example, spent 9 months just focusing on learning to create this higher level pillars for ourselves via her internal shifts. Why clients like Nadif, for example, why clients like Joao again, why clients like Ian, for example, they focus so much on these higher pillars, it's maybe less tangible and less easily noticed in the short term, but eventually, when people catch up to that real value, they will again flock to you like moth to flames. And the fourth big reason why a lot of men cannot be high value again is because a lot of men they're stuck on the wrong ideas of what it means to be a man and what it means to grow as a man. So when you are trying to explore the higher tiers here, like creating safety needs, emotional needs, esteem needs, self-actualization, you are actually getting into the realm of what we call like the more feminine qualities and exploring feminine things. You know, exploring emotions, understanding emotions, understanding kind of more philosophical views of life, deeper things in life. But for a lot of men, talking about emotions, talking about deeper things in life is almost taboo. They're scared to do it. It's almost like if you go to a bar with your friends and you start talking about your emotions and not about the latest football game, you're kind of a pansy a bit. And so a lot of men are scared to explore these areas. And if you look at clients like Robert Reinish, for example, when he first joined the program and we were telling him to do a lot of these very emotional and deeper emotional work, he was actually feeling very uncomfortable at first. But once he did it, and once he was able to learn these higher pillars, he realized that, wow, this untaps a new level of potential for him in terms of what value he can create. And that unlocked a lot of things in his relationship, in his life, in his career, in his business, etc. You know, because if you cannot even allow yourself to explore these higher pillars for yourself, how can you expect to create it for other people? There's no way. And now that we also understand why changing our definitions of what high value means is crucial, how do we get to the point where we're high value anyway? You know, so obviously we want the value that you create to be marketed, to be shown in a proper way. And we do this through what we call like the frameworks or the TPH scripts, where we teach you what to do, what to say, how to conduct everyday interactions with your partner. But in order for you to do and say the right things, there are a ton of prerequisites that needs to happen down below. So for example, if you want to express the frameworks, the things to do and say in a deeply emotional way, if you want to connect with your partner in a deeply emotional way, you need to first build your internal emotional literacy, right? If you are emotionally illiterate, if you don't even understand what you're feeling and what other people are feeling, you cannot talk on an emotional level. And for you to learn how to become emotionally literate, you need to build what we call the state of consciousness, where we can observe and deeply investigate our own emotions in a deep way. And in order for us to investigate our emotions deeply, we have to let go of our what we call the fundamental attribution error, where we judge ourselves, where we judge other people, for example, because once you judge something, you cannot go deep into understanding that thing anymore. And if you want to judging, for example, you need to start untethering. You need to start getting rid of your victim mindsets, for example. So basically, well, the key skill that you want is clear. You want to basically learn how to interact and talk to your partner in a positive way so she can see your value. But to do that well takes a lot of internal work, a lot of internal prerequisites to get that right. So guys, again, being high value is not just about dressing differently, about talking differently, about becoming more wealthy, becoming more fit, whatever it is that people traditionally think of as high value. There's actually a lot more peripheral and deeper skills that you need to master about yourself, which is why we always say, no one really has relationship problems. People have problems with the self that reflects in their relationship. It's not like when people are getting a divorce, for example, and their partner's leaving them, it's not like they don't know what to say and what to do. They often know what to say and what to do, but they just can't bring themselves to say it, to do it in a consistent way because they lack the internal shifts and the prerequisites for them to do it all the time properly, always. So to visualize this again, imagine a spectrum, right? On the top here, you have the things you do and say. So a lot of men, they love to pay attention to this. Jeff, just tell me what to do and say, and tell me how I can appear and look like I'm high value. But while these are, again, the tangible skills you can learn, these are the least valuable ones. But then as you go deeper into, let's say, getting rid of the victim mindset, untethering, bulletproof vest, and then you go deepest into identity shifting, those things, nobody wants to work on those things because it's not tangible. But while they're not tangible, they're actually the most valuable things you can do to actually make yourself high value. So if you want a program that teaches you how to actually do and create these higher level values in your relationship, but also teaches you the internal shift, the internal prerequisites to actually deliver on that promise of creating these higher level values, you can join me in a masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In the masterclass, I show you all the exact steps all my clients have used to get them from ground zero all the way to where they are today if you watch my client interviews. And at the end of the masterclass, I'll also show you how you can apply for the program if you're interested in doing so as well. But for now, guys, I hope that was helpful in redefining what high value means to you, and hope to see you in the next video.